cone mini one shot. I really wanted this to win, so screw it, here ya go. Ochako barely got any sleep, but how could she? Her ex, who's now a villain, just showed up in the night to her dorm room and wanted to take her away. She didn't know how to feel. She felt bad enough that she didn't turn him in, but it was far too late to do that. She got in her school uniform and she got to school and planted her face on her desk with a splat, not bothering to talk to anyone. Ochako. Mina had taken notice of her actions and she felt some concern for her. What? Ochako asked, not bothering to look up at her. She just didn't feel like it. Are you alright? Is something wrong? Mina asked. I'm fine. She started to get a bit angry. I don't know, Ochako. Your hair's not brushed and the way you came in here doesn't I said I'm fine. Ochako bursted out in anger, making Mina flinch and getting the attention of everyone else inside the room, including Aizawa. Whoa, what's going on? Kaminari said, looking at Ochako. Uraraka, what is going on over here? Aizawa asked, coming up to Mina and Ochako. It's nothing, sir. I'm just not in a good mood right now. Ochako felt ashamed for snapping like that. Mina, Aizawa turned to her. Sorry, sir. I think I just pushed her too far. Mina still felt like something was wrong with her, but she would leave it there. Quote. Let's just get class started. Everyone to your seats right now. Aizawa walked to the front and everyone who wasn't already seated. As class dragged on, Ochako didn't even bother to listen. Now she felt bad for snapping at Mina when she was just trying to make sure she was fine, even though she was far from fine. She couldn't help but wonder what Izuku up to. She just hoped for two things. One, he wasn't doing anything that would get himself killed, and two, he wasn't doing anything bad. Meanwhile, Izuku sat on his bed thinking about the previous night. Ochako, 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 Ochako was all that he could think about. He missed everyone, but he missed her the most. If only there was some way to get rid of the earpiece in his ear. Suddenly the door to his room opened and a sadistic girl came into the room. Heya Deku tilde. Toga licked her knife as she sat down beside him. Of all the villains, she was the one that made him the most uncomfortable. Hey Toga, Izuku tried to ignore her knife licking. So I heard you were unable to get that girl to come. That's too bad, she might get killed when we raid you. Eh? Toga put her knife away. Izuku looked at the ground, feeling his blood start to boil. You're also lucky this was your own thing. If you had failed another one of Tamura's orders, he would have killed another hostage. Toga said. Quote. I don't want her to die. A tear from his eye splashed on the ground. It will be alright, Deku. After all, you still have me. Izuku couldn't tell if she was being serious or not. Izuku lied his head back up against the wall. Ochako hates me now, and I couldn't even tell her why I'm doing this or a hostage would have died. Sorry, Ochako. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, All Might. I'm sorry, everyone. Izuku began to cry in his hands as Toga sharpened her knife beside him. Story continues below. Oh, that reminds me, Tamura told me to tell you that the date has changed. Our spy found some more info and it seems like it will take about another week before we attack. Lucky you. Quote. Toga stood up and skipped away. Once she was outside, she pressed a button which closed the door, locking him inside. He knew he could easily destroy it with his quirk, but he could never take on all the villains by himself. Instead, he sat on his bed pulling his legs close and he continued to cry. Back to Ochako. Ochako didn't realize she was crying until Aizawa pointed it out in class. Uraraka. You're crying, Aizawa said in the middle of class, causing a lot of the students to look at her. Huh. Ochako put a finger on her face, getting it wet. Uraraka, you're crying, Aizawa said in the middle of class, causing a lot of the students to look at her. Huh, Ochako put a finger on her face, getting it wet. Step outside for a moment. Any one of you listen in, you're cleaning the whole dorm and school for the rest of the year, he threatened the rest of the class as he and Ochako walked outside together. Now, what's going on? Even I noticed that you didn't get much sleep. You snapped at one of your classmates, and now you're crying in class. So, what is it? Quote dot. He asked her. Quote dot 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 dot. It's Deku, sir. I'm just not over him, she half lied to Aizawa. Aizawa sighed and shook his head. Uraraka, I understand that out of everyone here you would be the most affected by this, but you got to move on. He's a villain and you're trying to become a hero. You could very well face against him someday. Quote dot. Aizawa explained to her. I know, sir. It's just, I knew becoming a hero would have hardships, but I never expected betrayal to be one of them. Ochako wiped her tears away with her arms. Uraraka, I understand that out of everyone here you would be the most affected by this, but you got to move on. He's a villain and you're trying to become a hero. You could very well face against him someday. Quote dot. Aizawa explained to her. I know, sir. It's just, I knew becoming a hero would have hardships, but I never expected betrayal to be one of them. Ochako wiped her tears away with her arms. Quote dot dot dot. Yeah, I know that feeling. Look, go back to the dorms for today and rest. Grab your bag and just relax for the day. He went back inside with her and she grabbed her bag and left, and nobody dared to question where she was going. Ochako walked all the way back to her room and she got out of her school uniform and into some soft shorts and a blue shirt. She lied on her bed looking at her ceiling, but all she could see was his face. I wish. No. Mr. Aizawa said I have to move on. I need to think of something else and stop living in the past, no matter how painful it might. Besh thought, sitting up in her bed. Too bad being poor meant she couldn't really go out and everyone else was at school, so she didn't have anyone to do anything with. She felt like she really needed to get her anger out. She went over to the training room and she brought out some weights and she began to lift without using her quirk. Can't just work on my quirk. I gotta tone my body as well. She thought, lifting. She did some other things such as running, and she also practiced her quirk some. She even practiced punching a dummy, nearly destroying it in the process. She She felt like she really needed to get her anger out. She went over to the training room and she brought out some weights and she began to lift without using her quirk. Using her quirk. Can't just work on my quirk. I gotta tone my body as well. She thought lifting. She did some other things such as running and she also practiced her quirk some. She even practiced punching a dummy, nearly destroying it in the process. Well, that felt good, she thought, wiping her sweat off her forehead. As she continued to practice, Izuku himself was practicing with some villains. Begin, Tamura announced. He kept track of the time it took for Izuku to take down the 3 villains. They weren't weak but they were far from the strongest they had as well. Quote. 2 minutes. Good. You're making progress. Tamura scratched his neck watching Izuku take a seat. I've been at this for 5 hours now, how much longer? Quote. He asked. There's one more you have to face. Dabi, get in there. Just don't kill him, Tamura instructed. That's no fun but whatever. Dabi jumped next to Izuku. Izuku fought hard but he lost pretty easily, mainly since he was tired and Dabi had just started. That not really fair. Deku was at disadvantage, Toga whined. HMPH. He would have lost to me even if he was fully rested, Dabi said, walking by her and Tamura. Toga helped him to his room. Tamura left her and Izuku. Toga collected some of his blood, sampling a bit himself, and helped him to his room. Rest well, Deku. Toga closed the door, leaving Izuku alone in a bit of pain. Ochako didn't know why, but for some reason she felt like she could feel someone else's pain. Hope you have enjoyed, because this was definitely better than the sending pics.